Officer Marcus Thompson stood tall in his red uniform outside Buckingham Palace. The morning sun was bright and warm on his face. He had been a royal guard for 8 years now. Every day was different, but also the same in many ways. People came from all over the world to see the palace. They took pictures and smiled and pointed at everything. Marcus loved his job. He felt proud to protect the royal family and keep everyone safe. His black boots were shiny and clean. His tall black hat sat perfectly on his head. He stood very straight with his shoulders back. This is how a royal guard should look, he thought to himself. It was Tuesday morning in September. The air was getting cooler now that summer was ending. Marcus could see his breath just a little bit when he breathed out. The leaves on the trees were starting to change colors. Some were yellow and orange and red. It was a beautiful time of year in London. The palace gates were busy this morning. Many tourists had come early to get a good spot for the changing of the guard ceremony. This happened every day at 11:30 in the morning. People loved to watch the guards march and play music. Children especially got excited about it. Marcus watched as families walked up to the gates. Parents carried cameras and phones to take pictures. Children ran around and laughed. Some tried to get close to the guards to see their uniforms better. The guards were not supposed to talk or move much when tourists were around. But Marcus always tried to be kind with his eyes. He would look at the children and sometimes give them a small smile. A bus full of tourists stopped across the street. About 30 people got off. They all had cameras hanging around their necks. Marcus could tell they were from far away because of their clothes and the way they looked around with wonder. London was new and exciting to them. More people kept coming. Soon there were about 200 people waiting outside the palace gates. They pushed closer together to get better views. Parents lifted small children onto their shoulders. Teenagers took selfies with the palace in the background. Marcus scanned the crowd with his eyes. This was part of his training. He always looked for anything strange or dangerous. Most of the time, everything was normal and safe. But guards had to stay alert. They never knew when something bad might happen. He saw an old man with a walking stick taking pictures of the palace windows. A group of college students was laughing and joking around. Twin girls in matching pink dresses were begging their mother to buy them toy guard hats from a street vendor. Everything looked normal and happy. The street vendor was selling small British flags, postcards, and toy soldier hats. Business was good this morning. Marcus had seen this same vendor here for 3 years. He was a friendly man who spoke many languages to help tourists from different countries. A tour guide with a bright blue umbrella was telling a group about the history of the palace. She spoke loudly so everyone could hear her over the noise of the traffic and crowds. She pointed at different parts of the building and told stories about kings and queens who lived there long ago. Marcus shifted his weight from one foot to the other. Standing in the same place for hours could make his legs tired, but he was used to it now. When he first became a guard, his feet would hurt badly by the end of each day. Now his body was strong and used to the work. He thought about his wife Sarah and their baby daughter Lucy. They were probably having breakfast right now. Sarah would be feeding Lucy small pieces of fruit and cereal. Lucy was 10 months old and just learning to walk. She would take a few steps and then fall down on her bottom. Then she would laugh and try again. Marcus smiled, thinking about his little family. The crowd was getting bigger now. More buses arrived and let out groups of tourists. Some people came in cars and found places to park nearby. A school group of children about 8 years old walked up with their teacher. They all wore the same blue sweaters and carried small backpacks. Marcus noticed how excited the children were. They pointed at his uniform and whispered to each other. One little boy waved at him. Marcus wanted to wave back, but guards were not supposed to move when they were on duty. Instead, he looked at the boy and gave him a kind look with his eyes. The teacher was trying to keep all the children together in one group. This was not easy, because they wanted to run around and explore. She counted them several times to make sure no one was missing. "Stay close to me," she told them. "We will see the guards change in just a little while." Marcus looked at his watch. It was 10:45 in the morning. The ceremony would start in 45 minutes. The crowd would probably get twice as big before then. He could already see people starting to push closer to the gates to get the best spots. A woman with a crying baby walked by. The baby was probably hungry or tired. The woman rocked the baby gently and sang a soft song. Soon the baby stopped crying and fell asleep in her arms. Marcus thought about his own daughter again. Being a parent was wonderful but also hard work. The sun climbed higher in the sky. It was turning into a beautiful day. There were just a few white clouds floating slowly across the blue sky. A gentle breeze made the flags on top of the palace move back and forth. Everything seemed perfect and peaceful. Marcus continued to watch the crowd. This was his job, and he took it seriously. The safety of all these people was important to him. He looked at faces and watched how people moved. He listened for anything that sounded wrong or dangerous. Most people were happy and relaxed. They talked and laughed and took pictures. But Marcus knew that bad people sometimes hid among good people. He had to be ready for anything. This was what he had trained for. This was why he became a guard. The street was getting busier with cars and buses, too. Police officers on motorcycles drove by slowly to make sure traffic was moving well. Everything was running smoothly this morning. It looked like it would be a normal, peaceful day at Buckingham Palace. But Marcus did not know that in just a few minutes, he would notice something that would change everything. He did not know that a little girl in the crowd was in terrible danger. He did not know that today would become one of the most important days of his career as a royal guard. Marcus continued to watch the crowd as more people arrived. The changing of the guard ceremony would start soon, and everyone was getting excited. Children were jumping up and down. Parents were getting their cameras ready. The noise of happy voices filled the air. That's when Marcus saw her. A little girl stood completely still in the middle of all the movement and noise. She was about 7 years old, with brown hair that came down to her shoulders. She wore a bright yellow dress with small white flowers on it. The dress should have made her easy to spot and look cheerful. But something was very wrong. While every other child was moving around and talking and pointing at things, this little girl was like a statue. She did not move at all. She did not look around at the palace or the guards. She did not seem to hear the noise and excitement around her. Her eyes were fixed on something across the street, and she stared without blinking. Marcus felt a cold feeling in his stomach. In his 8 years as a guard, he had learned to trust his feelings when something seemed wrong. Right now, every part of him was telling him that this little girl was in trouble. He looked more carefully at where the girl was staring. Across the street, there was a black van parked in a spot where cars were not usually allowed to stay for very long. The van was bigger than a normal car, but smaller than a bus. Its windows were so dark that Marcus could not see inside at all. This was strange because most cars did not have windows that dark. Marcus tried to remember how long the van had been there. He thought it was about 20 minutes now, maybe longer. Usually cars and vans only stopped in that spot for a few minutes, to drop someone off or pick someone up. Police would tell them to move if they stayed too long. But this van was just sitting there. The van looked ordinary in most ways. It was not too old and not too new. It was clean and did not have any writing on the sides. There were no company names or phone numbers like delivery vans usually had. It looked like someone had tried to make it look as normal and forgettable as possible. Marcus looked back at the little girl. She had still not moved. Her small hands were pressed against her sides. Her shoulders were tense and raised up toward her ears. This was how people looked when they were very scared or worried about something. A woman stood next to the girl. Marcus guessed this was probably her mother. The woman had the same brown hair as the girl. She was looking around at the palace and taking pictures with her phone. She seemed happy and excited like all the other tourists. But she did not seem to notice that her daughter was acting strangely. Marcus wanted to keep watching the girl, but he also had to do his other duties. He looked around at the rest of the crowd to make sure everything else was normal. The school group was still staying close to their teacher. The old man with the walking stick was now sitting on a bench to rest. The street vendor was selling more toy hats to excited children. Everything else looked fine. But Marcus kept looking back at the little girl in the yellow dress. She had not moved even a tiny bit. Her eyes were still locked on the black van across the street. Marcus had never seen a child stand so perfectly still for so long, especially in such an exciting place. He tried to think of normal reasons why the girl might be acting this way. Maybe she was tired and felt sick. Maybe she was scared of crowds and all the noise. Maybe she had never seen a palace before and was amazed by it. But none of these ideas felt right to Marcus. The way she was staring at the van was too focused and too intense. Marcus looked at the black van again. He could not see any movement inside because of the dark windows. But he had a strong feeling that someone was inside, watching. The van was positioned so that whoever was inside would have a perfect view of the crowd in front of the palace gates. More people kept arriving for the ceremony. The crowd was getting thicker and harder to see through, but Marcus could still spot the bright yellow dress of the little girl. She was like a small island of stillness in a sea of movement. Marcus decided to move a little closer. He walked slowly along his patrol area, which brought him nearer to where the girl was standing. He wanted to get a better look at her face, and maybe hear if she was saying anything. As he got closer, Marcus could see that the girl's eyes were very wide open. She looked like someone who had seen something terrible and could not look away. Her face was pale, which was strange because it was a warm day and most people had pink cheeks from walking around in the sun. The girl's mother was now talking to another woman who seemed to be a friend. They were laughing about something and comparing the pictures they had taken. The mother had no idea that her daughter was standing there like a frightened statue. Marcus was close enough now to see that the little girl was breathing very quickly, like she had been running. But she had not been moving at all. People only breathed that fast when they were scared or worried about something. He looked at the black van one more time. It was still there, still not moving. Marcus tried to see if there were license plates on it. There was a plate on the back, but he was too far away to read the numbers and letters clearly. Marcus felt his training kicking in. He had learned to notice details that might be important later. The van was parked at an angle that would make it easy to drive away quickly. It was pointing toward a street that led away from the palace and toward the highway. Someone who wanted to leave the area fast would park exactly like this. The little girl suddenly took a very small step backward. It was so small that most people would not have noticed it. But Marcus was watching her carefully. She moved like someone who was trying to get away from danger, but was afraid to move too much. Marcus made a decision. He was going to find a way to talk to this little girl. Something was very wrong, and he needed to find out what it was. But he had to be careful. If there really was danger, he did not want to make things worse by acting too quickly. He looked around for his fellow guards and police officers. There were several other guards at different positions around the palace. There were also police officers on foot and on motorcycles nearby. If he needed help, he could call for it quickly. Marcus took a deep breath and started walking toward the little girl in the yellow dress. He did not know what he would find out, but he knew he had to try to help her. Every part of his training and every feeling in his body told him that this child was in serious danger. The crowd continued to laugh and take pictures around them, not knowing that something frightening was happening right in the middle of their happy morning. Marcus walked slowly toward the little girl. He tried to look casual and friendly, like he was just doing his normal guard duties. He did not want to scare her or make anyone watching think something was wrong, but his heart was beating fast, because he could feel that something bad was happening. As he got closer, Marcus could see the girl more clearly. She was definitely scared. Her bottom lip was shaking a little bit like she was trying not to cry. Her small hands were pressed into fists at her sides. She looked like she was using all her strength to stand still and not run away. Marcus was now close enough to speak to her. He bent down low so his face was at the same level as hers. He wanted to seem friendly and safe, not scary. His big guard uniform and tall hat could be frightening to small children if he was not careful. "Hello there," Marcus said in his gentlest voice. "Are you having a good time visiting the palace today?" The little girl did not answer right away. She kept staring across the street at the black van, but Marcus could see her eyes move just a little bit to look at him. She was listening to him, even though she was too scared to turn her head. "My name is Officer Marcus," he said softly. "I work here at the palace. Are you here with your family today?" Still no answer. But Marcus noticed that the girl's breathing was getting even faster. She was becoming more frightened, not less. This told Marcus that whatever was scaring her was still happening right now. Marcus looked over at the woman he thought was the girl's mother. She was still talking and laughing with her friend. She was taking a picture of the palace clock tower. She had no idea that her daughter needed help. "What is your name, sweetheart?" Marcus asked the little girl. He kept his voice very quiet and calm. The girl finally moved her head just a tiny bit to look at him. When Marcus saw her eyes, he felt like someone had poured ice water into his stomach. Her eyes were full of terror. These were not the eyes of a child who was just shy or tired. These were the eyes of someone who believed something terrible was about to happen. The girl opened her mouth and tried to say something, but no sound came out at first. She was so scared that her voice was not working properly. Marcus waited, patiently, and tried to look as kind and safe as possible. Finally, the girl managed to whisper something. Marcus had to lean in very close to hear her because her voice was so quiet. "The man in the van," she whispered, and then stopped. Marcus felt his whole body become alert. "What about the man in the van?" he asked very softly. The girl's eyes filled with tears, but she did not let them fall. "He told me he has my daddy," she whispered. "He said if I move or tell anyone, Daddy will never come home." Marcus felt like the world had suddenly become very cold and very dangerous. This was not a scared child having a bad day. This was a real threat. Someone was using this little girl's father to control her and keep her quiet. Where is this man? Now? Marcus asked, still keeping his voice very low. The girl's small hand moved just a little bit to point toward the black van. He's watching me right now, she whispered. He said he can see me all the time. He has a gun, and he will hurt. Daddy, if I do anything wrong? Marcus had to use all his training to stay calm and not show how worried he was. This little girl was caught in the middle of something very dangerous. Someone had kidnapped her father and was now threatening to hurt him if she did not do what they wanted. What is your daddy's name? Marcus asked. Robert Chen, the girl whispered. He's a policeman. The bad man showed me a picture of Daddy all tied up with rope. Daddy looked scared and hurt. Marcus felt sick to his stomach. A police officer had been kidnapped, and now the criminals were using his daughter to get what they wanted. This was much worse than Marcus had thought. What does the man want you to do? Marcus asked. The girl was crying now, but she was trying hard to be quiet about it. He said when he honks the horn of his van, I have to walk over there and get inside. If I don't come right away, or if I tell anyone, he will kill Daddy. Marcus realized that this little girl had been standing here for 20 minutes or more, waiting for a signal that might mean she would be kidnapped. She had been terrified, and alone this whole time, trying to save her father's life by being brave and following the bad man's instructions. What is your name, sweetheart? Marcus asked again. Emma, she whispered. Emma, I want you to listen to me very carefully, Marcus said. I am going to help you and your daddy, but I need you to be very brave and do exactly what I tell you. Okay? Emma nodded just a tiny bit. Do not look at the van anymore, Marcus said. Look at me instead. I want the man in the van to think we're just having a normal conversation. Emma slowly turned her eyes to look at Marcus instead of the van. This was probably the first time in 20 minutes that she had looked away from it. Good girl, Marcus said. Now, I am going to call for help on my radio, but I am going to do it very quietly so the man in the van does not know. Can you keep looking at me and maybe smile a little bit? We want to look normal. Emma tried to smile, but Marcus could. See how hard it was for her. She was being braver than most adults would be in this situation. Marcus slowly reached for the radio on his belt. He had to be very careful. If the man in the van saw him calling for help, he might hurt Emma's father or try to take Emma away. Marcus needed backup, but he needed it to arrive without the criminals knowing it was coming. Emma, Marcus said, how long ago did the bad man take your daddy? 3 days, Emma whispered. Daddy didn't come home from work. The man called Mommy and said he had Daddy. He said if Mommy called the police, Daddy would die. He made Mommy bring me here today. Marcus looked over at the woman he had thought was Emma's mother. Now he understood why she seemed to be trying so hard to act normal and happy. She was probably just as terrified as Emma, but she was trying to protect her daughter by doing what the criminals wanted. Marcus pressed a button on his radio and spoke very quietly into it. He used special code words that his fellow officers would understand, but that would sound like normal conversation to anyone else listening. This is Thompson at Main Gate, he said. Requesting immediate backup for a Code Silver situation. Possible hostage scenario involving a minor. Black van. Parked across the street, suspect inside. Approach with extreme caution and discretion. Emma was still looking at him and trying to smile. Marcus could see how much effort it was taking for her to be brave. Help is coming, Emma, Marcus said quietly. Very soon we are going to get your Daddy back and make sure you are both safe." But even as he said these words, Marcus heard a sound that made his blood turn cold. It was the sound of a car horn honking twice from across the street. The sound of the horn honking twice cut through the noise of the crowd like a knife. Marcus felt his heart jump into his throat. This was the signal the criminal had told Emma to wait for. This was when she was supposed to walk to the van and let herself be kidnapped. Emma heard the horn, too. Her whole body started shaking. Her eyes went wide with panic. "That's the signal," she whispered. "I have to go to him now, or he will hurt Daddy." "No, Emma," Marcus said firmly but quietly. "You are not going anywhere. I am going to protect you." Marcus stood up quickly and moved his body between Emma and the black van. He could not let the man in the van see Emma clearly anymore. At the same time, he spoke into his radio again, this time more urgently. "All units, Code Silver is active. Suspect has given signal to victim. Need immediate response now. Block all exit routes from the area." Marcus could hear the sound of running footsteps behind him. His fellow guards and police officers were moving into position. But they had to be very careful. If they moved too quickly or too obviously, the man in the van might panic and try to escape, or worse, he might hurt Emma's father. Emma was crying now, but she was trying to be quiet about it. "He said I have to go," she whispered. "He said if I don't come right away, Daddy will die." Marcus knelt down again and put his hands gently on Emma's shoulders. "Emma, look at me. Your daddy is a police officer, right? That means he is very smart and very brave. He would not want you to put yourself in danger to try to save him. He would want you to stay safe with me." Emma's mother had finally noticed that something was wrong. She stopped talking to her friend and rushed over to where Marcus and Emma were standing. "Emma, what's happening?" she asked. "Why are you crying?" Marcus looked up at Emma's mother. He could see the fear in her eyes. She knew exactly what was happening, but she had been trying to act normal to protect her daughter. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Thompson," Marcus said quietly. "We are going to get your husband back safely, but right now I need you and Emma to move away from this area. My fellow officers are going to handle the situation." Emma's mother started crying, too. "They said if we called the police, they would kill Robert. They said they were watching us all the time." "Ma'am, we are going to be very careful," Marcus said. "But we cannot let them take Emma, too. That will not help anyone." Marcus could see police officers moving into position around the black van. They were being very sneaky about it. Some of them were dressed like regular people, so the man in the van would not know they were police. Others were hiding behind other cars and buildings. The horn honked again, this time longer and more demanding. Emma looked toward the van. "He's getting angry," she said. "When he gets angry, he hurts people." Marcus stood up and put his hand on his gun. He did not take it out yet, but he wanted to be ready. "Emma, I want you and your mother to walk very slowly toward the palace entrance. Go stand with the other people there. Do not run. Just walk normally." But before Emma could move, something happened that changed everything. The black van's engine started with a loud roar. The man inside had realized that something was wrong. Maybe he saw the police officers moving around, or maybe he just got suspicious when Emma did not come to the van after the horn signal. Marcus could see the van starting to move. "All units, suspect is mobile," he said into his radio. "Do not let that van leave the area." Suddenly, police cars appeared from several different directions. They had been waiting on nearby streets for Marcus's signal. Now they were moving to block the van's escape routes. The van tried to drive forward, but there was a police car in front of it. It tried to back up, but another police car was behind it. The driver was trapped, but Marcus knew this made him even more dangerous. Marcus drew his gun and pointed it toward the van. Other police officers did the same thing. "Armed police!" Marcus shouted. "Turn off the engine and get out of the vehicle with your hands up." The van did not stop. Instead, it jumped up onto the sidewalk and tried to drive around the police cars. People started screaming and running out of the way. The peaceful morning at Buckingham Palace had suddenly become a dangerous police chase. Emma and her mother were holding each other and crying. Marcus wanted to comfort them, but he had to focus on stopping the van before someone got hurt. The van crashed into a street sign and got stuck for a moment. This gave the police officers time to surround it completely. Now there was no way for it to escape. "Turn off the engine!" Marcus shouted again. "You are surrounded!" The van's engine stopped. For a moment, everything was very quiet except for the sound of people crying and talking in scared voices. Then the van's back doors opened. Marcus held his breath, not knowing what he would see. Was Emma's father inside? Was he alive? Were there other criminals with guns? A man climbed out of the back of the van. His hands were tied behind his back and there was tape over his mouth. Marcus could see that this was probably Emma's father. Robert Chen. He was alive, but he looked hurt and scared. "Daddy!" Emma screamed, and she started to run toward the van. "No, Emma!" Marcus called out. "Stay back! It's not safe yet!" The man who had been driving the van was still inside. Marcus could not see him clearly through the dark windows. He might have a gun. He might be planning to hurt Robert Chen or try to escape on foot. More police officers arrived. Soon there were at least 20 officers surrounding the van with their guns drawn. They had special shields and protective clothing. This was now a full police operation. "Driver of the van!" a police officer with a megaphone called out. "This is your last warning. Get out of the vehicle now with your hands where we can see them." Marcus kept his gun pointed at the van, but he also kept one eye on Emma and her mother. He needed to make sure they stayed safe while the police finished dealing with the criminals. Suddenly, the driver's door of the van opened. A man got out, slowly with his hands raised above his head. He was tall and thin with dark hair. He looked angry but also scared because he knew he was caught. "Get down on the ground!" the officers shouted. "Face down with your hands behind your head." The man did what they told him to do. Police officers rushed over and put handcuffs on him. At the same time, other officers carefully freed Robert Chen from the back of the van. Emma could not wait any longer. She broke away from her mother and ran toward her father. "Daddy! Daddy!" she cried. Robert Chen had just gotten the tape removed from his mouth. When he saw Emma running toward him, he started crying. "Emma! My brave little girl!" Marcus finally put his gun away. The immediate danger was over. The criminals were caught and Emma's family was safe. But Marcus knew this was not the end of the story. There was still a lot of work to do to make sure these bad people went to prison and could never hurt anyone else again. Emma ran into her father's arms and hugged him as tightly as she could. Robert Chen was sitting on the ground next to the van, still getting help from the police officers who were cutting the ropes off his hands. Even though he was hurt and tired, he smiled when he felt his daughter's arms around him. "I was so scared, Daddy," Emma cried into his shoulder. "The bad man said he would hurt you if I told anyone." "You did exactly the right thing, Emma," Robert said, stroking her hair. "You were so brave. You helped the police catch the bad guys and save me." Emma's mother ran over and joined the hug. The whole family was crying, but now they were happy tears instead of scared tears. They had been apart for 3 terrible days, and now they were together again. Marcus walked over to check on the family. Robert Chen looked up at him with grateful eyes. "Officer, I cannot thank you enough for protecting my family. If you had not noticed that something was wrong with Emma, I don't know what would have happened. I was just doing my job, Marcus said. But Emma is the real hero here. She stayed calm and told me what was happening so we could help you. While the Chen family was reuniting, police officers were searching the black van carefully. They needed to find evidence that would help them understand what the criminals had been planning and make sure they went to prison for a long time. Detective Sarah Williams was in charge of investigating the crime. She walked over to Marcus to get his report about what had happened. Officer Thompson, can you tell me exactly how this all started? Marcus explained how he had noticed Emma standing very still and staring at the van. He told Detective Williams about the conversation he had with Emma and how she had explained that her father was being held hostage. You made all the right decisions, Detective Williams said. Your quick thinking probably saved this whole family. Inside the van, the police officers found many frightening things. There were zip ties that could be used to tie someone up. There was a cloth with a bad-smelling chemical on it that could make someone fall asleep. There were photos of Emma and her family that had been taken secretly over several days. Most importantly, they found papers and a computer that showed this was not just about Robert Chen. The criminals were part of a much bigger group that hurt many people. Robert had been investigating these criminals as part of his job as a detective. The bad guys had kidnapped him to stop his investigation and force him to destroy evidence that would send them to prison. Detective Williams came back to talk to Robert Chen. Robert, we need to understand what you were working on that made these people target you. Robert was still holding Emma, but he was feeling stronger now. I have been investigating a human trafficking ring for 6 months. These people kidnap children and force them to work or sell them to other criminals. I was getting close to proving who the leaders were. They kidnapped you to stop your investigation? Detective Williams asked. Yes, Robert said. They wanted me to destroy all the evidence I had collected and stop working on the case. They said if I did not do what they wanted, they would hurt Emma and my wife. Marcus felt sick thinking about what could have happened. These were not just regular criminals who wanted money. These were people who hurt children for a living. Emma had been in much more danger than Marcus had realized. The good news, Detective Williams said, is that by catching these 2 men today, we now have enough evidence to arrest the entire criminal organization. Your investigation work was not lost, Robert. In fact, catching these guys today will help us save many other children. Emma looked up at her father with wide eyes. Daddy, you help save other children too? That's my job, sweetheart, Robert said. I try to catch bad people who hurt children so that kids like you can be safe. Just like Officer Marcus helped save me? Emma asked. Exactly like that, Robert said, and he smiled at Marcus. Over the next few hours, more police arrived to process the crime scene and interview everyone involved. Emma had to answer some questions, but Detective Williams was very gentle with her. She asked Emma to tell her story while sitting with her parents so she would feel safe. Emma told the detective everything that had happened. She explained how the man had called her mother 3 days ago and said he had her daddy. She told about how scary it was to stand outside the palace for so long, waiting for the horn to honk and knowing she might have to go with a dangerous man. Emma, you showed incredible courage today, Detective Williams said. Most adults would not have been able to stay as calm as you did. The 2 criminals were taken away in police cars. As they left, Marcus felt proud that he had been able to help catch them. He thought about all the other children who would be safer now because these bad people were going to prison. The crowd of tourists had been moved away from the area while the police worked. But many people had seen what happened, and news reporters started arriving to tell the story on television and in newspapers. One reporter asked to interview Marcus about how he had noticed that Emma was in trouble. "Officer Thompson, what made you realize that something was wrong?" Emma was standing completely still while every other child was moving around and playing, Marcus explained. "In my experience, when a child acts very differently from what is normal, there is usually a good reason. I trusted my instincts and decided to talk to her." "What would you tell other police officers about this situation?" "Always pay attention to the little details," Marcus said. "Sometimes the most important things are not the obvious ones. And always listen to children when they try to tell you something. Emma's bravery is what really solved this case." 2 weeks later, Marcus received a letter at work. It was from Emma, and she had drawn him a picture of Buckingham Palace with lots of colorful guards standing outside. At the bottom, she had written in her careful 7-year-old handwriting, "Thank you, Officer Marcus, for saving me and Daddy. You are my hero." Marcus hung the picture up in his locker, where he could see it every day before he went to work. Robert Chen came back to visit Marcus a month later. He was feeling much better now and had returned to his job as a detective. "I wanted to update you on the case," he told Marcus. "Because we caught those 2 men, we were able to arrest 15 other criminals in the organization. We also rescued 12 children who had been kidnapped and were being held by these people." Marcus felt amazed. His decision to talk to one scared little girl had led to saving 12 other children. "There's something else," Robert said. "The police department wants to give you a special award for your excellent police work, and Emma wants to be there when you receive it." On the day of the award ceremony, Emma wore her yellow dress again. But this time, she was smiling and laughing like any happy 7-year-old should. She stood next to Marcus as he received his medal for courage and excellent service. "Officer Marcus," Emma said into the microphone, "thank you for listening to me when I was scared. You showed me that police officers really do protect people and keep children safe." Marcus looked out at the audience and saw his wife Sarah holding their baby daughter Lucy. He thought about how important it was for children to feel safe and protected. That was why he had become a police officer in the first place. That night, Marcus went home and hugged his own daughter extra tight. He thought about Emma and how brave she had been, and he hoped that Lucy would grow up in a world where people, like Officer Marcus, would always be there to keep her safe.